Hello and welcome to this very interesting conversation we are having ahead of the International Women's Day. Every year, Women's Day is celebrated with more ambition, more goals for the future, and of course, celebration of women achievers. And that's exactly what we will do today as well in this session. I am Gauri Dwivedi, Senior Editor with the Economic Times, and I'm in conversation with three women achievers who've broken glass barriers and, more importantly, are setting the stage for the next gen as well in a sector which is a male bastion and continues to be dominated by, well, for want of a better word, the unfairer sex. And I have Preeti Bajaj, CEO and MD of Luminous, joining me. Dr. Shalini Sareen, who's the board member, advisor, and executive coach and former CHRO of Schneider Electric, as well as Ms. Seva Panda, who's the head of software innovation at Edopar. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. I'm going to start with quick bios. All of you have long, illustrious careers, and I'm going to keep the bios short to ensure we have more conversation flowing in. Starting with Preeti, she's been at the helm of and leading change in several companies in the past. And in her past avatar, she headed the Adecco Group as the Australia and New Zealand CEO and MD for Modis Australia. And she's committed to using renewable technologies to enable customers to achieve purposeful living. Seva Panda is excited and passionate about opportunities for automation, from traffic solutions to electric vehicle charging solutions, and has 25 years of professional experience behind her, all towards leading software development, innovation, and transformation. Last but not the least, Dr. Shalini Sareen. She's worked across India, US, and Europe, and across geographies. She's been at the helm of various companies and is right now board member of companies like Kirloskar and Nagaro. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me in this session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's start by building a conversation around energy. It has multiple facets and many dimensions to it, from access to energy, to how companies are being led by, energy companies are being led primarily by men, and what lies ahead when we talk about the change towards renewable. What is it that women can do and aspire to do in this change that we are seeing around the world? I'll structure this conversation in three parts because it's an online conversation. I want to make it as freewheeling and chatty as we can. I'll start by allowing all three of you to make opening comments. We'll build a conversation with a couple of questions that will flow in from your opening remarks. And probably we'll try and squeeze in some closing comments to cover up any specific areas that we've missed out during this conversation. And a quick word to all viewers who've tuned in on our different platforms that you can ask your questions to any of these three ladies by typing in, and we'll try and ensure that your questions are addressed. It's an important conversation. I want to ensure that all questions, particularly from female viewers, are addressed. Okay, let's start with some opening comments. Preeti, why don't you start with what do you think are the top 2-3 ideas or your assessment of how the situation or the landscape is as far as the energy sector in India is concerned?
Thanks, Gauri, and welcome everybody to this awesome day. It's always great to have a chat. When I think about energy, I think about three things. One is that energy in the world is actually at an inflection point. Second is, I think, energy in its own right, and how it will be produced, how it will be supplied. I mean, in terms of solar and storage, it'll be a decentralized world. We are seeing the start of what would be a decentralized, decarbonized economy, and India has a big part to play in it. So there is also this, I would say, excitement in the energy sector around what's possible. When I joined energy or electricity, it was not supposed to be like a fad career. It was not the industry of choice for most people. Today, it's an exciting place to be. It's where a lot of innovation is happening. I think the third part I'll point out is that if you look at the climate tech stats alone in India, in the last year alone, we raised something like $580 million and increasing towards climate tech companies itself. I think the pity is, though, that even though India is producing the largest number of unicorns or third largest number of unicorns in the world, the founder ratio, when you think about even climate tech investments, that was actually, I suppose, taken by women, is only 10% of that overall investment. So as we sit here on Women's Day, energy is happening. There is a real energy transition. We have a commitment as a nation to build a decarbonized, decentralized economy with 50% of our electricity consumption to be powered by solar by 2030. There is a whole lot of technology that is being infused, be it battery storage, be it alternative chemistries of any kind. I think the question remains, in this renewed sector of energy, will women bring a renewed sense of energy to their careers?
Thank you for setting the stage, Preeti. You're absolutely bang on when you say that even in terms of female entrepreneurs in the field of energy, they're just horribly underrepresented. And what is the most disappointing aspect is that women underrepresentation has nothing to do with skills. Whether it's low skilled work or whether it's highly skilled work, it's across the board that women continue to be underrepresented. And I hope that is the big change that, we can sort of drive through conversations and discussions like these. All right, let's get in Dr. Shalini Sareen as well for quick comments, and then we'll get Seva Panda as well.
Thank you, Gauri. And I'm going to take a lead from what Preeti said. Today, there are very few women in energy, but tomorrow, there won't be very few women in energy because there's this huge transformation which is happening in energy. Earlier, and I kind of clubbed them into 4 Ds. First is, of course, decarbonization. And therefore, from those large coal plants, which were usually far away from the city where women had less access to, we are moving into renewables. And that gives you opportunities already. In digitization, there's a plethora of opportunity with BMS, with AI, with data science, with machine learning, with ICT. So the whole connected part now has changed the way you play with energy and the way you collect data and the way you interpret data and what you do with it. The other is, of course, decentralization. And that is, you can already see, while in India, we would have it for the access issue, but in the mature economies, you're also having these decentralized projects for economic issues, especially the greenfield projects. And of course, the last one is the democratizing of energy, which brings more private players. So with these 4 Ds, there's this huge opportunity. And I'm just going to throw a little bit light to share where the paradigm has already moved. I work a lot with these NGOs or with the self-help groups and with a lot of foundations to execute the projects. And it is remarkable to see that there are a lot of women players already working in that last mile, and they have a far greater impact where there is a distribution challenge, where there is a supply chain, where there is a service challenge, where there is an end-of-life management challenge. So if you see in the access issue, you have the product where you need to co-create the product so that the insights of the women has been brought into the cook stoves, for example, or lighting, for example, because they are the most impacted. And then, of course, the financing or the microfinancing, the training and the capacity building. So as we go along, we'll talk more about it. But I think today is an opportunity and women have started to play in that opportunity.
Yes, yes, indeed. Opportunities galore. It's time to grab some of them. And I want to now get Seva Panda to help us understand the sheer transformational power that technology has. Because, when you talk about gender with respect to energy, I don't think it's still fully understood just how much gender inequality plays out as far as energy is concerned. Men and women get impacted by access to energy or anything related to energy in wholly different ways. And that is, studies around the world indicate that. It doesn't matter whether you're a woman in Brazil, whether you are in India, or even in developed parts of the world. It is that gaps can probably best be bridged through technology, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just adding to the points that you said, that this is a global problem. Like in manufacturing, we have far less representation by women than in other fields. Like, for example, if you take consulting firms, it's almost 50%, like there's 45% representation by women. So it's something culturally where women have not been a part of the engineering and manufacturing. And even in Toyota, if you see the board members, it's only 5% representation. So I was just looking through, where women are represented currently. And it is a problem which I feel can be bridged just by the social network. I think there's a lot more acceptance now. There's a lot more need. And there is a huge requirement for the global economy to be changing. So unless we all represent and be a part of it, I don't think there is going to be a solution. So, and this is a realization that everybody has, like even the men and the women, everybody knows that we need to have, that is why everybody has a diversity component in their companies and corporates. I feel that even governments now are open to having a lot of representation by women. So where we need to work is have the women have confidence in, like what I think this is something that I learned from Preeti the other day, that you walk in, like just have the confidence and take the leap of faith. And there are solutions and requirements, and everybody's willing to actually, have new ideas so that we can have solutions to these issues. So I think we need to work with the social aspect more, because women need to have confidence to actually take that step and be involved in the change of economy. I'm not sure how we are going to do it, but I know that there's an awareness of it. So as this forum that Luminous is starting, where you have a year-old, initiative where we actually approach and take steps so that we are in with the society, because education is now available to women everywhere. So there is more than about 50%, and they do well till their 12th standard. It's only then as they keep growing older that we have a very dwindling, representation in the upper sections of the corporate or anywhere that you go. So we need to change that by opening up the mindset of the women, that there's nothing can go wrong, meaning the priorities that we set. Like we want to be superwomen where you can do the home, you can do the corporate, you can do everything. It's not always achievable, and whatever we do makes a difference. And it's okay to not have, your home address to every time. You can actually contribute in both the places and not be perfect. So I think that is some message that we need to send. And if that is done properly, I think we should make a difference.
I agree with every part of what you said, except for the fact that there is no superwoman. I think there is only superwomen. There's nothing called a superman. It's only women who can get everything going and not a man. So I agree with everything else that you said. But I'm glad that, we're having this conversation, because, when I saw the data, it was so stark that the World Economic, WEF, World Economic Forum's latest data said that 75% chances that a woman will change her field from energy to a non-energy sector than grow in the same field. So that just tells what is it that we are talking about. As I mentioned, it has nothing to do with skills. It's just the sector per se. And how do we go about fixing that, Preeti? There are multiple layers. There is the the unskilled, the low-skilled laborer and workers, which have a different set of challenges because the socio-economic surroundings are different, as compared to women in leadership or entrepreneurial journeys, where there the social economic framework is different. However, the underlying premise continues to be the same. Energy is unequal when it comes to gender opportunities.
I think I'm gonna philosophically have a look at this and say this, irrespective of whichever socio-economic structure we might be coming from into the energy sector. Number one is, if something is growing and something is transforming, be part of it, your chance of success will be higher. If you look at the history of female prime ministers in the world, they never came to power when things were peaceful. They always came to power at a transformational moment. When all is said and done and changes the course of nature, most of the times women rise to power. It is actually an historical reality. We can look at it. Secondly, we can learn from history that they do transformations well. Because they have this courage sustenance, which actually is a natural training force within women. I mean, you look from, I would say, from Indira Gandhi to, Razia Sultan, right through to Rani Ki Jhansi. I mean, you see that element so many times. I can keep going. Isabel Goldmeyer, you can just keep going and the number increases. I think there are three elements which you don't need education for, but you do need to have insight for. Number one is courage. My call out to everybody would be, make your daughters courageous. Courageous to take a risk. Energy is at a risky moment. Your natural appetite for risk will play out as a reward. A lot of the times as women, when we are being brought up, we are told to be cautious against risk. There is a subliminal training that goes on, particularly, I think, if we are truthful about it in India. Don't go out at 7 o'clock. Frame that as go out, but these are the things that you need to be aware of to be able to manage. It's the same thing said differently can actually change the outcome. The second piece, I would say, is confidence. And I think confidence is super essential. I love that today's generation has this idea that they don't have to follow the same career path. They don't have to do it the linear way. They can open a startup and they start. Most of the founder situations I've heard in India, and I don't have the specific stats for it, are male and female led together. I think there is some part of confidence that plays a role in taking chances. Confidence is non-negotiable. And that's really about saying, well, yeah, hell yeah, energy sector is tough. It is male dominated, but I'm here to stay. So it gives you resilience. Confidence gives you resilience. It's directly proportional. And courage builds on that resilience. Last piece I would say is curate. Curate with your partner, with the support system, whatever it is. I cannot believe that even in 2023, we fail to negotiate the terms on which we will contribute. We do not buy a washing machine without terms and conditions. Even that comes with warranty, and this is how you will get service, and this is how that will happen. And usually our partners and our society curates with us what are the list of expectations. What about our curation of expectations? Where's our terms on the table? Our terms have to be on the table too. And in the energy sector, I think we should curate that dialogue. There's a lot of amazing young leaders in the energy sector in India, male CEOs who would support the idea of curating the dialogue for the future. Because the future, the new India, so to speak, we want to build, actually builds better economically if women participate by roughly $770 billion by 2025. Today, as we sit here, only 18% of women contribute to GDP. And I'm not even sure what the number for energy is because it's not significant. Just imagine in a high growth industry, solar alone in India is growing at 25% compounded annual growth rate. If women were to participate, how much less burden it is on everybody else and the futures we create. So it is time to curate, be courageous, and be confident that the future is yours to own. We just need to take some more chances. quite frankly, what's the worst that can happen? We marry people we don't even see for too long, and we take a chance on our lives. We're good risk takers. We should take risk with energy too. At least it's actually a proven prototype.
Yes. Okay, that's a very positive note, and some of it is what I think is what India is also going through right now. You know, when you talk about the G20 presidency, you talk about how India is now shaping the global order, so to say. This kind of change can be led by a country like India, highest population of people in the working age, highest number of women graduates who are coming out, and largest transformation in terms of energy. If there is a renewable change that any country can make, it is India, because of the sheer scale and numbers that we bring in. And this is probably the most optimum time for women to start playing that role. But how do we sort of go about doing that is what I bring in. I want to bring in both Dr. Shalini as well as Seva on. Yes, Dr. Shalini.
Yeah, so I think that's a very relevant question. So there are two parts to your question. One is the issue about women, and the other is the issue about energy and the play that women contribute in that. So let's deal with both separately. Now, whether it is to do with engineering functions or whether it is to do with energy per se, we've had many women graduate, and like Seva also mentioned, that about 48 to 50% graduate, but about a minimal of 25 or 24% really participates. What happens to these women? And what happens to them is a lot of stereotypes. What happens to them is a lot of traditional mindset. And that is what I say is at an inflection point, which is changing. Now, what you need within is your own ability to challenge or push the envelope. So like what Preeti talked about, her own ammunitions, your own ammunitions need to surface, and you need to continuously keep challenging. But I would say there needs to be 4 structural changes. One is the structural change or the challenge that the society, the family needs to impose on the women and the women in herself. The other is organizations have to go out and find those very few women. Because, you know, that is the difference between equality and equity. When we say we have an equal policy, we will get whoever is meritorious. But you need to do a little bit extra to go and find those very few women so that you have more role models and more women attracting more to be able to take those roles. The third is that you need to have women in P&L roles. You know, Gauri, I've been hiring for a long time in energy companies, and mostly I would get women in support functions, and the needle wouldn't move. The needle started to move only when I had P&L leaders being from, this gender. And that's when the influence started, because what was happening in the organizations as well, whether it's HR or finance or marketing or any of these support functions as they are perceived, who do not hold the purse strings or the budgets, you are still dependent on the men to get a buy-in to get your project running. And when the woman holds the budget, that is where things change. So how can we get more women in the position of influence is an effort that the organizations have to do. And the last thing that I would say is we have to put the basics in place. You know, we are talking about women going out there, but safety, transport, these hygiene have to be able to be fixed so that women can go out. And I'll leave at that.
You know, the last part that you said, my sense is that when you talk about how the society responds to creating working conditions for women, that is a work in progress, because it's a real-time response. More women start showing up, automatically there'll be women-only toilets. You know, that will happen. And some of the women will drive that change. Others will become beneficiaries of that change taking place. So that I am not very worried about from a larger perspective, because I feel, and that has happened across societies, across geographies, and across industries. Such responses come when women turn up. It's about how do you ensure that they turn up, and how do you ensure that the renewable opportunity that India has can actually become an opportunity to become a level playing field, so to say. As I said, going back to some of those figures which are disappointing at some level, or a call for action at another level, that, forget what has happened so far. There are just 11% women entrepreneurs in energy. They get almost a fifth less than their male counterparts in any job as far as energy is concerned at any level. There are still some segments of energy where they are not represented at all. But all of this can change because digitization is the big undercurrent, so to say, as far as the Women's Day this year is concerned. And when you marry digitization with the renewable opportunity that India is expecting to spearhead, then we can see the kind of transformation that all of us are really hoping for. Do you share my optimism, Seva?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, because I'm also not very old in this field. I've joined it about 3 years ago. So what you're saying is absolutely right. Like, the digitization is merging between the energy sector, and there are opportunities coming. Okay, so that is the point that we have already discussed, that there's huge opportunities coming, and this is where we need all the forces to be in. But I feel the change how do we get people involved in this? That's the other point that we have been discussing. So I think we need to set examples. See, so far, what the people who have been in the engineering sector, the ladies, we are basically gender neutral. That's what I perceive. I may be wrong. So we haven't really gone out of our way to actually set example for women to come in. We need to do that, because there is an opportunity, and if people follow with example, like if ladies see that, yes, it is, we are normal ladies, we have families, we have children, and we have managed to, work and not really be, we didn't need any superhuman effort. Okay, I go back to your superwoman comment, but I feel we should say that everybody can do this, everybody can do it. So most of the ladies, so we should go out, take that step, and go and tell people more about how things work in this corporate or in this field. And I think that will change things.
Yeah, Gauri, if you would allow me, I just want to compliment Seva's outlook here with a few facts and figures. I mean, these are things we are doing right now. I think the call to action for the industry is to be intentional about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And technology is one of the best levelers in the world. It's one of the best levelers. And I mean deep tech, whether it's battery chemistry, right through to building a PCBA, right through to actually programming, because it's really intellectual work.
Yeah.
It's intellectual work. And so it's really about your capacity to think. That is a gender neutral activity. It's basically got to do with IQ. So a couple of things that at least at Luminous we are doing are we've upped the ante on our campus interviews, and we've hired 25% more women each year on year over the last 3 years as graduates. We are intentional about the fact that we want to develop a cohort that is diverse and mixed.
Yeah.
We are intentional about the fact that we want to have 20% of our management team and growing, of course, underpinned by capability, with leadership held by women in very influential and impactful roles. Not easy to do, by the way, in an industry that is not used to it. And these people, what they bring with them is a actionable change, essentially, Gauri. And what happens is then people around you start to go, I can be what I can see. So it is about sort of, it's a 3-step process. It's about building the pipeline. Then really, I don't like this word, but a lot of male CEOs will use this word. We took a chance on her. I mean, how's taking a chance on a female leader any more or less than a male leader? I don't know how your risk somehow dilutes.
I was coming to just that. That's the next thing I wanted to ask, which is pushback. We need to be very aware of a very significant aspect of workplace environments, which is pushback, and that is expected. We'll play out a very, very heartening video that that Luminous has put out at the end of this discussion. But that video also has a certain degree of pushback that women have seen in the past, and it will continue, whether it is at senior level, whether it is at entrepreneurial levels, or whether it is at low skill levels. How do you then address the pushback that will come from male ecosystems? It's not just about your male boss, it's a male ecosystem. Everything is around a male dominated sector. And do you think the role of government becomes more important to address this pushback? Because, how else can you create a level playing field?
Gauri, I'm very tempted to jump in. And before I talk about government, I want to talk about the pushback. And the pushback is nothing but creating a fair, equal play. When men are brought up, when boys are brought up, why must they be told to be macho? Why must they be told to, if you aren't strong physically, you're not good enough? Why can't be human? Why can't you express your emotions? And when a woman expresses herself and negotiates and demonstrates leadership, why is she called aggressive? So why must we not, break these stereotypes and paradigms for both sides? So stop expecting your daughters and women to shrink, and stop expecting your men to be the breadwinners. Why must I be shy in public to say that I am the breadwinner of the family? And, in a social setting, why must I be very coy and just play along? So I think these stereotypes are very, very important for us to break. I took an international assignment and I moved to the Netherlands, and I moved alone, and my husband was in India. My own friends were telling me, "Oh, you've left the poor guy alone." I said, "I'm the poor woman who's going alone. He's with his family. He's got the whole infrastructure. He's got everything going for him. I'm the poor one." And my own friends were telling me, "Oh, you're leaving the poor guy alone." So, these are the stereotypes that we need to be able to push back. And both sides, let men take up paternity leave. They also want to contribute and look after the child. They love to spend that child, the time, during the growing up age. So if you really want to make an impact, get men as allies. They are not against us, but let's be fair and equal to both, and let's be human before we are men and women.
I want to just add that, Gauri, what I will say is this, it's like you have to build a lobby in your favor. And I think it's a skill we should teach women. We should absolutely have training classes on this. How to build allies in the boardroom, everywhere. You need to network the hell out of this stuff. You will get less pushback. You will get more push in. At the end of the day, it's all about whatever the goal is. And mostly for most organizations, it's the profit motive. It's, doing better. It's about working with people that are easy to work with and who get things done. I can tell you it's super linear. In fact, stop thinking about I'm a woman. Start thinking about how do I make this guy my mate? He's got to be my friend. He's got to be in my corner. We've got to change the frame. Got to change the frame by saying how many. It's almost like sometimes we got to sit in that meeting and go, I've got to win 4 votes today. What's the speech going to sound like? You will see confidence, courage, and creativity are infectious, and they're gender neutral. People will come.
Get you the allyship, and that
will get you the allyship.
Yeah.
But on that allyship, I do feel that we have to be intentional perhaps about how we train for it. Maybe it is a learned skill. It's the only insight I would share. Maybe it is a learned skill because it's sort of, there are lots of societal stereotypes that play out. Last thing I just want to say, I think young men, I feel, and a lot of amazing CEOs in India are ready for it. We are ready for it. We've just got to ask. So my message would be bold, be occasionally bossy, and remain beautiful.
That's a lovely one. And that's the one that women don't need to be aggressive just to be one amongst them. Be yourself.
Preeti, I have a woman boss. I agree with everything except for the bossy part, because she must be tuning in right now. So
that's amazing. But look, I am super inspired by the challenge of the stereotypes as well, Gauri. And a lot of women on this call, you included, are actually the challenge to the stereotype. I mean, there was a time when you would never see an editor. It was a tough time in journalism. It was a tough time in software programming. It was a tough time in the business world. It was a tough time in HR as well. So things have changed. We are all part of the change. And as pioneers, we shouldn't expect it to be easy. That's point number one. Point number two, I think there are stories of lots of women. I think you spoke about the video we've done. I was super inspired, that a line woman was accepted into the community of, I suppose, energy sector in India as well. And that's what inspired us, because it's inspired by a true story, to really talk about how we challenge the stereotype. And when you challenge the stereotype, it creates room for growth. I think forget about the pushback. Like I said, let's challenge in. That's why I keep saying it's time to walk in.
Time to walk in. Seva, I want to bring you in on the fact that I said, the governments, the role that governments can play in dealing with this pushback. Even if, on a best effort basis, women want to break those glass ceilings, how can you ensure that actually takes place? Because the role of government ecosystem cannot be sort of ruled out, cannot be undermined.
Yeah, I was going to come to that actually, but I believe that we have more in terms of women, it's more a social problem, So the issues that we are talking about, it needs to work in both places. Like the government also needs to do things, but I feel even if they do right now, the people will not be accepting. So it should go with, together. So right now, I feel it's more a social requirement that we need to set examples. We need to tell people that this is possible and you need to be doing it, because there have been initiatives, all along by the government, but it is not taken very positively. Like, for example, in the panchayats and all, there has been a lot of initiation, but it doesn't work out well. There'll be male, the husbands will be wanting to do the role. They'll put their wives ahead and but they will be the people who will be doing it. So they are looking at their male as a role model and they are just following what he's saying. So I feel it's more a social problem. We need to work and make sure that the ladies around us are, rising along with us. It should not be like we are some distant lighthouses and the people don't know about it. So I feel it's time for a social change right now. When we have to do it fast, the government will move with us because we will be a part of the government, right? It's not something external. If we rise, we are part of that system.
Exactly. And, I want to come to the renewable opportunity because of the multidisciplinary aspect about it. There's going to be fresh technology, fresh financing, different work environment. You're not talking about the same traditional mining or other aspects which has no women representation, right? These are different working conditions where women may be more attracted to come to. Some of these working conditions could also be a dampener for women to contribute in a larger way. Do you see all that going through a sea change because of so many aspects of renewable opportunity being completely different? And what do you think could be the effort that the public-private partnerships can build to ensure greater women participation when you're talking about the renewable opportunity? And that's a question I throw to the entire panel. Because that, I think, could be the defining aspect of gender representation in energy in probably a decade's time from now. Yes, Preeti.
Yeah, I just want to make a point before we run into this.
Sure.
It's a point which Shalini had made about the P&L being with the lady. Okay, I think that's a very important part. I agree to it totally, and I feel in all the changes that we are talking about with respect to renewable, if we have a little more money, involved in it, or we give some perks, like if you are in this field, you are going to get more money. That economics will change the entire the game. So that was a point I wanted to make.
Agree. Absolutely. It's all about the money, honey. Absolutely.
Well said, Gauri. So I think again, the transformation of energy is definitely here to stay, right? The renewables and the energy mix change will be there. The connectivity of distributed resources, solar power or wind power or any of those assets will matter a lot more. When you think about it, a number of these businesses are also very consumer oriented, because you put solar on someone's home. It's a very emotive aspect of a sale as well, which is a natural, at least considered to be a natural win spot for women, if you like. I mean, you wouldn't think of renewables as a consumer marketing aspect, but it truly is. It truly is. So what it does is it creates a breadth of, I think, options. We shouldn't think of this only in terms of there is a power plant being made, which is a large megawatt power plant. It's actually about the small power plants, which are home appliances. Energy pack in a battery pack is a home appliance. It's actually built for women, maybe by women and men one day, but it is a battery pack going into the home to power the consumption that we do in terms of running the household. That's what Luminous does. It's a home appliance. And we will see that. And in matured markets, I certainly witnessed that in my career, the move of energy assets in the home to being energy home appliances. When that happens, it opens the gamut, right? It absolutely throws the game wide open, because now you are really connecting to all the functions of a business and a consumer, which lend itself to strengths. Secondly, I think I would really make a call out here that women shouldn't think of any industry when they're choosing their career as male or female, because everything is transformative. Chances are there are a whole host of avenues. I always say that just to work in the software industry, you don't need to be a software engineer. Seva will testify to that. You could be a great UI UX designer. You could be a great product marketer. You don't need to come from a particular background anymore to, in fact, be in any particular sector. What you need to have the ability to critically think and learn fast. Because things are changing so fast, Gauri. I don't think any of us can keep on top of the innovations that are actually happening in the world. I mean, it's seriously fast. So in that sense, those aptitudes are far more important. So when I think about renewables, I think structurally, companies can be more open-minded about how they hire. Secondly, I think women in particular, since we are talking about it in the context of Women's Day, could be more open-minded about what the shape of those businesses would be. When you think about finance, when you think about marketplaces in energy, there are very different business models. They don't look anything like the large-scale mega projects. They actually look like aggregator models. It could be an Amazon for the energy appliances. You could think about it that way. I think you spoke about public-private partnerships. There, I think impact investing plays a very big part. I think impact investment can actually change. I had the great pleasure of actually doing a residential course at IIM Bangalore just last week. And one of the things that I was talking to a woman impact investor there, and that particular fund has decided that they will actually only give you money subject to you having adequate representation of women on the board as well as in your leadership team. So I think that's a more powerful route, because then you are affecting far many more businesses by making investments and actually turning the culture and bringing a capable, diverse team in that sector, rather than perhaps, a big mega project, which will obviously be great at multiple levels, but it only has that one big bang impact. Because as you know, India is in reality is micro markets microfinance, micro impacts, which aggregate to a bigger impact. So I think the opportunity of impact investment in renewables is a huge one. And the call out would be to investors, because if you're building a sustainable company with adequate free cash flows, you got to have a diverse and smart team, which actually includes women and stands for something. I suppose a lot of people will agree that purpose is the order of the day. So the call out would be to impact investors.
What about climate tech incubators being created by companies, Seva? Do you think that's a proposition that could get a lot more women entrepreneurs at the forefront and also encourage entrepreneurial journeys of more women, incubating some of them or any other such ideas that you may have?
I actually haven't thought about having it only women focused. The incubation idea is there morely from the idea of, the technology part. So yes, it works, but it is a very interesting, we should add the women perk into it, like what even Preeti was saying, I think it will work out quite well. So right now, because of the change in energy and the requirement for sustainable, renewable, etc., there are incubation part, even in our company in Adore Powertron, we work a lot to ensure that we are, we provide good solutions which would impact the environment in a positive way. So I think if we do this, it's a good pointer. I'll try to do that also, like include a certain perk to have women in the team so that it will, help this initiative that we are having now.
Yeah, I call it the capital-led quota system.
Yeah, the perks will be economic to the project.
Yeah. What are the kind of some of the estimates that I have here, because it's in the realm of a lot of forecasting? It says that the disproportional impact that greater women representation can have on Indian economy is just very significant, and more so for sectors like energy, because some of the others have already seen greater women representation, whether it's healthcare, education, commerce. There, women are coming at the forefront and they are leading and becoming a driver of economic development and change. And that isn't the case as far as energy is concerned. It's still a missed economic opportunity. And it's for communities in specific, for regions, for geographies, for countries, and for a region as a whole, Southeast Asia as a whole, we can then talk about. How can we go about fixing some of this? There are challenges because there's nothing that is homogeneous here. We're talking about a very heterogeneous group which is impacted by a whole host of socio-economic parameters. But how can we go about fixing some of this and probably become leaders of change? Dr. Shouldnt.
Yeah, Gauri, let me add to that. And while you were talking about impact investing, India Angels Network started, and we saw that there were very few women takers when we were getting our pitches and when we were investing. So there are some forums like the Angel Eye forum, which is only doing impact investing for women. IFC has a very big section where, they are investing in women-led projects. Acumen has been. So there has been a lot of work which has started, but it will take a long time to be able to bridge this gap. And the way I see it is technology is taking off. And Preeti has alluded to it a lot, and so has Seva. That technology, we are already at the inflection point where it's an equalizer and we don't need the physical strength. We need the creativity and the leadership, and a lot of technology that comes in is going to bring us at par. Policies now are coming in, and we do have policies where women are being attracted, whether it is second inning career women or paternity leave and whatever else. Business models are changing. The three areas which still need a lot of change and a lot of work is one, women in finance. Women are not comfortable taking financial decisions even at home. So Preeti was talking about that our products are becoming home appliances. Tell me what percentage of women are taking those decisions. Tell me in the organizations, where are the P&L, where is the P&L sitting and where are the decisions being made? So I think women in finance is a very big gap area, and that would lead to women in decision making. When women start to make decisions confidently and on their own, that is when the needle will move. And for that, we also have to have not only role models, not only networks, not only mentors, but also some structured programs where we can bring these changes to put women in decision making and will put women in positions of power.
That's a very important insight. How do you make women as decision makers? I believe also hinges closely on how important it is to keep women as your central buyers, so to say, as your central target audience, so to say. And that's a question I want to ask both Preeti and Seva as we are sort of coming to the end of this discussion, which is that how much of product development, specifically when you talk about energy, has women as their target audience? When you talk about household appliances or something that is going to impact livelihoods and households, do companies keep women as the sole impact audience? Or is that yet to change? Because that will also decide who takes the decision of buying it.
Yes. So I think that's a journey, Gauri, if I'm totally honest. That's a journey. Energy has been the mainstay of, it is bought and purchased today in the male ecosystem. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. We love all manner of consumers. I think that journey is probably a world-based journey, frankly. It's not just India or just the energy sector. What I would say is this, that as we design for effectiveness, convenience, and fit, that will morph into it being a more gender neutral possibility rather than it being designed for women or men, because you're really designing for all kind of consumer demographic. So this kind of goes back to, if women were participating in the economy, it's a vicious cycle, right? Then they have a say in how the home appliance is being purchased. Therefore, their insight as a consumer now starts to matter. So it's the chicken and an egg question, essentially. But what I would say is that with design-led approaches coming to products, and this is an early journey, if I'm not being too bold, I would say certainly for Luminous, but also my observation is perhaps it's something that India is doing as a whole, as we design for the world, and the world is diverse. So is our nation. Then the question becomes, how do I exhibit my value proposition in that design for any manner of consumer of today and tomorrow? I think that's the broad question. It's a journey, though. We don't sit here and, when you go and do consumer insights, essentially we have a lithium-ion inverter, it's a 12.8 volts, 100 ampere hour sort of backup power, 1.28 kilowatt hour. We did a study. And it was interesting. A lot of consumer insights for women were on aesthetics. They weren't necessarily on what is my energy cost going to look like. When you dissect the data, that's just to give you some insight. It's not like we don't ask, we ask. But we have to, it's a two-way street. It's ultimately the full fit of the product that we want to comment on. We want all of it. We want the best of you to get the best of product. So it will be a two-way street. It will be a design process. That's the way I think about it. And we will need to make it more friendly for everybody, maybe more visual, more interesting, more insightful. Energy has to be engaging in the home, I would say. That's perhaps the challenge we have as an industry. I don't know, Seva, how do you feel about that?
Seva, yes.
Yeah, I think there is a gap, which is pointed out quite rightly. We do not, as of now, so we don't know, things might change. As of now, we do not target our audience as women. We don't keep it that way. It's more gender neutral in the power sector. So if we do focus on maybe the women, and it's a really design change that we have to think. For example, I'd like to give you an example. Like I wanted to put the solar roof in my parents' house, and my father's no more, so the decision maker is me. So when I
call Louis.
No, that's true. I can do that. But what I wanted to point out was because it's an expensive solution, and I was the decision maker, the person who was selling, okay, was not very confident that I can make the decision and buy. So he was very reluctant to actually come and survey because it's a cost to him. And he was not confident that I will make that decision. So it prolonged for about 3 weeks where I had to push him and come and review and do a survey to tell me if the solution will work. So I have to put an extra effort because I am a lady to convince people in this energy sector to, yes, like I understand the technology, you please come and have a look. So this is something that but it's not only their problem, it's also our problem. Like as a corporate, we have not focused on women. I think we should do that. That's a very good input. I'm getting a lot of good inputs this time. I think I've never focused on women-centric thing. This is the first time where actually we are having a session where I think it's essential that we do it. So we'll work on it. That's all I can say now.
And I believe so. If we meet and when we meet next year to celebrate International Women's Day, if we've made progress on some of these inputs and some of these ideas and insights, it would be a whole new journey for women going forward as far as energy is concerned. Some of these ideas can be very, very path-breaking for women, creating an incubation center, keeping women entrepreneurs at the center of it, ensuring that product development has women as one of its target customers, or at least at the center, if not totally as their customers. And as Preeti mentioned, some of those ideas related to the change that corporate culture can have with women being in senior leadership positions. If some of those changes happen, I'm not even saying all, if some of those changes happen, we're looking at a whole new transformational journey for women in the energy space. Completely out of time because I want to play that film at the end of the session. It's truly, truly transformational, and we've got to see it to understand the power of change as far as how it can change livelihoods, rural livelihoods, most importantly, households, and how women can be at the center of driving that change. But thank you so much, all three of you, for joining in this very exhaustive, insightful session covering a whole gamut of issues related to energy, India, and the new India that we are all aspiring and hoping to achieve and create soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's play out that film at the end, and we're going to stay here for some memories that we will create after making that, putting out that film, because we need to click some pictures as well. But let's first play out that film to really understand, as I said, the power of transformation at the lowest possible level where it matters the most.
आज स्कूल में क्या सीखा?
मछली जल का रानी,
जल का नहीं, जल की,
जीवन उसकी पानी,
उसका।
पापा पापा दूध उबल रही है।
उबल रहा है, रहा।
चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदी की रात में चांदी के रंग से चटनी चटाया। छताई। ओहो। दादू, इस पे फूल कब आएगी? कब आएगा?
बेटा खाया नहीं, खाई।
ओके ओके। मम्मी, लाइट चला गया।
चली गई। मैं भी कंप्लेन करती हूँ।
अरे ये लाइनमैन कहाँ रह गया?
वो तो आ गई।
आ गई नहीं, लाइनमैन आ गया।
नहीं मम्मा, आ गई।
लड़के रिवाजों से जग के नई रे खिला जल रही।